Awesome. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Gamers Breakfast. My name is SkojSkull. I'm here joined with my host, Jalbagel, and our special guest with us today, JinJinx, part of the Mathalos gaming team. How you doing?
Hello. I'm doing pretty well.
Hell yeah. Do you mind telling us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure. So about 3 years ago, my channel partner Tuner and I, twitch.tv/Tuner, go watch him. We started a YouTube channel originally focusing in Monster Hunter. Basically doing gaming math, optimization, that kind of thing. Talking about meta builds in Monster Hunter. Did a few like weapon tutorials and stuff as well. Strategies for beating some of the more difficult monsters. Initially, where we got our big pop of, like, I guess, viewership. Was that we were the first ones to actually delve into the deep arcane bullshit mechanics of Call of Taroth, because her mechanics are really weird and arcane, and there's very specific strategies you have to do if you want to kill her efficiently, because she doesn't fight like normal monsters. Stuff like limiting how many mantle pieces you break in what phases of the fight to make sure she sheds early and stuff like that. The reason I found out all that stuff is because I was part of a speedrunning team that got a world record on KT speedrun, OG KT, not ATKT, that lasted 22 hours before a Chinese team dunked us. But
oh wow, that's usually how it goes.
Yeah, but we had to learn the intricacies of all the mechanics to be able to do that kind of a speed run. So after I learned all of those, like, okay, fuck it, I'm tired of like explaining how this works to people on like Reddit and Discord all the time, so I'm just gonna make a video and link people to that instead.
Yeah.
And then it kind of blew up, and so did our channel, so we just started doing that for a while. 2.5 years later or so, we switched from Monster Hunter to Iceborne, then to Genshin Impact for a while. And afterwards, I kind of came to the realization that even though I could do this full time, it wasn't healthy for me physically or mentally. And ended up taking a break that eventually turned into me quitting it full time. And now Tuner and I do occasional podcasts. I've been putting out like a little Elden Ring Let's Play series recently. Might do some Elden Ring guide content, but I'm not making any promises on that. And yeah, I've been going back to work at high-end restaurants full time, and also spending my spare time working on certifications and the GitHub repo for data analytics work, since that's where I want to be moving into at this point. Restaurant work can definitely pay well. I've definitely made good money, especially when I was consulting in the industry. But ultimately, I feel like I need to be doing something with numbers and something more cerebral to actually feel satisfied. So, looking at moving into data analytics work currently.
There you go. Yeah, do what makes you happy. I mean, there was a lot of stuff, especially I think I remember watching your videos surrounding mental health and everything, and what you were going through. It was a lot of like, especially. With content creation, a lot of full-time content creators are working from home, and having the workspace in the same building as your real life is very strenuous, and I don't think a lot of people understand.
It's definitely challenging. Like, there's a lot of that's a challenge too. Plus, like, ultimately, I think the work from home is part of it, but a big part for me personally is the whole entrepreneurship aspect of it. I've realized through therapy that I have an incredibly unhealthy attachment to my own view of my self-worth and self-image to my productivity and like my success metrics. And when I have like a normal job like I have right now, and I'm working 35, 40, 45 hours a week, I can go to my work, do a good job, come home and be satisfied. But when you run your own business, like, okay, well, I put out 3 videos today. This week I've worked 60 hours, but I could get another video out if I work another 10 hours. And so it never feels, to me at least, feels like I've done enough. And it never really has that same feeling of, okay, I did a good job, I can rest now, because my computer's right there. I could go work on another video right now. I could be banging out another script, and it became very consuming and unhealthy for me.
Oh yeah. It was like what your mind was cycling around whenever you're going around your house. You're just like, you're getting coffee. I could totally do this right now.
Jenny, my spouse Jenny, has told me about the many times that they heard me reciting or talking up or thinking up scripts in the shower.
Oh man.
Oh, that's me when I drive in the car. I'll sit there and like brainstorm while I'm driving like to and from work, and then the moment I get home, it's gone. Doesn't exist anymore.
Yep, I'll do that sometimes too on the drive to work and back.
Oh yeah, definitely. But yeah, when did you say this started happening? Was it during around when like Genshin was really popping out for you, or?
There was Genshin definitely didn't help, for sure. Like with Monster Hunter was, I definitely enjoyed my time in the Monster Hunter community and doing the Monster Hunter stuff more overall, because like ultimately an issue with Genshin is that you can ultimately pay to win, essentially. And so it becomes a lot more difficult to have your like validated theory crafting and mathematics actually be accepted, I guess, by a general public, by the general community, because like ultimately, especially with how like many different tools people have, like because all your gear is randomized and you have to grind it out and hope you get better stuff. There's a lot of cases of where the anecdote doesn't line up to theory crafting or to the numbers because someone simply has better gear. And even though they're running something less optimal because their numbers are simply better, their runs look more impressive or their numbers look more impressive. And unlike in Monster Hunter, where ultimately people who do speed runs, people who clear really fast, people who do big numbers, everyone has the same gear. So if you run the same gear as them, you're able to hit the same numbers and see that happen. And ultimately, if you have really fast runs, people go, okay, maybe this person knows what they're doing. But in gacha games like Genshin, you have a lot of people who have spent literal thousands of dollars, like every new banner, to max out characters, get max 5-star weapons, all that kind of stuff. And numerically, they look really impressive, even though they may not actually understand the fundamental game mechanics very well at all. And that can lead to a lot of issues of like bad advice being very popularized in the community. And also, in general, I hate drama, and the Genshin community is filled with so much more drama compared to the Monster Hunter community. Like,
I could tell just like peeking in from like even some tuner streams that have happened in the past where there was a lot of things to like unfold and really talk about.
There
was a lot going on between the communities, and it was
Like, I don't think Genshin is necessarily a bad game or anything. I actually really enjoy it, and I think in terms of the game design they've done on Genshin, the design team has done an amazing job of actually putting together a really good what is like the game design ideal of easy to pick up and very difficult to master. But because the core game mechanics are incredibly simple, you have 2 abilities per character, you have normal charge attacks, and then you have and you can switch between characters, and they all have internal cooldowns and everything, and then so like it's very, very simple, but the actual intricacies of how the system works from a theory crafting perspective is incredibly detailed. We've had to figure out and test and extrapolate the very arcane mechanics behind how things work, like things like how different reactions work depending on different skill order, how much elemental gauge the reactions burn. In other words, how many times you can react off of a certain amount of element applied by different abilities, how much they apply, which things break the ruls. Like, there's just so much in there that's so interesting. There's so much to it that like it's incredibly complex and deep. And like from a theory crafting perspective, it's really fascinating, fun to do that, but it's also difficult when like a very large majority of the community either doesn't like it's a different thing when in like Monster Hunter, Souls games and whatnot, people like, I don't care about playing meta, I don't care about running max DPS sets, etc. And in Monster Hunter, we were always trying to be very like clear at the intro of our videos and just in general to our community that, hey, we're not saying you have to play meta, but if you want to do the most damage, here's what you do. This isn't telling you have to play this way. Play how you want and have fun. It's a game. But if you do want to min-max your DPS, here is the mathematically best way to do so. And like in Genshin, there's a bigger issue with that because like it's not just like people who like, I don't want to play meta, I want to play my waifu teams and stuff like that, which is especially strong in gacha games because they're waifu games.
Yeah.
But there's also a problem with that. There's a very large chunk of the community who just straight up does not believe or does not like theory crafting, because of the fact that there's a lot of these very big anti-theory crafting like whale content creators who have kind of drummed up this sentiment in their community that like, oh, I only care about my numbers. I only care what my numbers say. I only care like what my clear times look like. So it leads to this, especially when it comes to like team and like power, and like power perception of characters and whatnot, which is a lot of what we did was, you know, assessing the character strength to be like, hey, if you want to pull this character for meta reasons, like, are they worth pulling for? Are they worth potentially spending up to $380? $390? I forget. Spending like $400 to pull them if you get maximum unlucky and have to spend money on them, because that's how much a guaranteed 5-star costs if you get maximum unlucky. Yeah,
it's like a PlayStation 5 per character.
Yeah. And that's just for one copy of the character. I mean, mind you, if you play multiple. Yeah. Mind you, if you play consistently, like you get free Primo Gems, which is a premium currency. If you buy like the $5 monthly pass and play every day and then do your dailies every day for 10-15 minutes a day, like you can build up like a few free 5 stars every few months or whatever. But if you're paying out of your pocket, like one copy could cost you up to around $400 if you're just purely buying off premium currency. And since it's, you know, gambling rolls, if you're maximum unlucky and have to hit hard pity each time, it costs that much. So, but like, and then on top of that, you want to get copies of the characters for constellations. And so it leads to this big skew where like the whale content creators who spend like thousands of dollars every like new banner on like max copies of a character, max copies of their like 5-star weapon. That also gets stronger with each copy. Where characters that are A, easier to play, and B, also like get much stronger with those kinds of things, tend to get a lot more, like have a much higher perception in those communities' minds of the power level, because of those factors. Because when they're maxed out like that, they look very impressive. Like there's a lot of characters that are very strong but difficult to use, that are considered very like not considered great by a lot of those communities, because of the fact that the people who that they listen to can't enable or can't actually play them effectively. But yeah, it's just there's a whole mess of all that stuff. And then there's just like constant drama between content creators, because if any YouTuber or Twitch streamer knows that drama is good for business, and there's just it's kind of a mess. The community is so big that ultimately you have a lot of toxicity in there too that bubbles up. Even if there's a small percentage, there's a very vocal minority. There's been cases of like voice actors of like underpowered characters getting chat bombed in their streams by the Genshin community. And stuff like that, where they've had to end stream because of like chat bombs. And these are the voice actors. They have nothing to do with the character design. It's just this is the one person they can like focus their hate on. They can target, and like it's a mess. I love the theory crafting community in Genshin, but like even Tuner, who still plays Genshin, I quit and I'm probably not picking it up again. Especially because like playing that game every day lets those dopamine receptors, those addiction receptors, really sink in. But like Tuner still plays it sometimes, and like he just has elected to never interact with the community. Just don't interact with the Genshin community, and he's been enjoying it a lot more because of that.
Oh yeah,
weird how that works.
That's crazy.
Weird.
Yeah, it's always unfortunate when you get that like incredibly vocal, incredibly upset minority that just wants to ruin everyone's experience, like everyone's time with something. Like, I mean, every not to make it about Pokemon, right? But every like Pokemon announcements like that, right? Like you get just this group of people that just want to be mad about new shit.
I was seeing some things on Twitter, I think yesterday or the day before, about that new cat character that's that cat.
The green
Pokemon.
Cat.
The green cat that's like a sexy cat standing on 2 feet or something, and people getting mad about it or something. I don't know.
No. I'm in this boat too. Keep all the legs on the ground. No, it's because every starter, right? Like every single starter in Pokemon,
they start standing up.
They always stand up. Every single starter stands up, and it's like, no, it was perfect.
Yeah, more human.
Yeah.
Then there was like Oshawa who
keeps doing it.
like did the reverse. He was like standing up and then went on all fours later on. I'm just like, what the fuck happened?
Or sniping, he just loses all of his legs.
Yeah.
Jesus.
No, but you always get like, and every community is like that. I think it's just, you can like quell it one way or another, right? With popular content creators, you know, like, and also like curating your own experience, right? But like you're saying, you know, like these whale streamers, these really popular, you know, Genshin streamers are also propagating misinformation, either just to build themselves up or, you know, tear someone else down.
I mean, in
like even Tuner was saying that.
In a lot of cases, I'm not specifically targeting like any whales with this. These statements, and also like a lot of them, like I genuinely think are trying to give it good advice. It's just that they are entertainers and not like theory crafters. So like they don't understand the in-depth parts of the mechanics. They go off of their own experience, and like anecdote is important, but when your anecdote is what it's like to have this character or this team when you spend thousands of dollars on it, it's not really relevant for most of the people, especially in games like this that actively encourage those power spikes to make people spend more money. And
I would say it's like the same sentiment like this, right? Because I mean, this is more relevant to at least my experience. It's like when a speedrunner, someone who has been speedrunning like previous games, learns a new speed game, and they have an audience that wants to engage with this new thing, and they ask questions, and but instead of the speedrunner actually like making that, you know, investigation, they make an assumption based on their experience. And that's when the misinformation gets propagated and stuff like that. It's not necessarily designed to be harmful, but it does end up being harmful.
Yeah. And there's also just like, I mean, I am at my core, I'm a cynical rationalist. I grew up in a scientific household. My mother is an epidemiologist. My stepfather was a pediatric cardiologist and recently retired from being a director of public health at the CDC. I am a very numbers and data driven person, hence why I'm going into data analytics. And like a thing that when you're, I guess, more like scientifically literate, which I have like the good fortune of being so, because I grew up in England initially, and there was a distinct notice in the quality, like the drop in the quality of like science classes in school growing up when I moved to America. But one important like core concept of like the scientific method is that anecdote and multiples of anecdote do not equal data. And so like anecdote is important, but ultimately it's still anecdote.
Yeah.
And a lot of these, I mean, it's in every game really. Like it's in every game and every community that like the big streamer's anecdote will often become like a very big perception in the community because they're big, and even if they don't necessarily have the core skill background to actually make those kinds of assertions, like their opinions are going to be kind of touted as like facts. And it's a less of a problem in like more competitive games. I think that's a big issue with Genshin, is it's not a competitive game. So like, I mean, you have those things in like, you know, like in like League of Legends and Overwatch and Valorant and all these things. Like at the end of the day, if someone in top 500 or Challenger is telling you something, they probably know what they're talking about because they're in the top 0.0001%, right? And like the really big streamers or really big content creators who are like gold or platinum, like you know that their advice is like around that level. But there's nothing like that in Genshin, right? There's nothing like that.
There's no leaderboard that we can point at to see like how competent you are in the game.
And even if there was a leaderboard, like it'd be like whoever spent the most money is still going to top the numbers. Like there's no way you can beat that numerical advantage, right? And like at least in Monster Hunter, you know, okay, people can see like what we're talking about. Our builds are used by speedrunners, because I used to make a lot of builds for speedrunners. I have a lot of speedrunners I used to talk to in Monster Hunter days. But and you can see these builds are being run by them, and like, you know, getting clears on monsters that are probably close to 10 times faster than what other people are used to. Even my own runs, like I am by no means a speedrunner, but like Iceborne, I was able to get my master rank Nergigante down to like sub 3 minutes, I think, which is pretty fast. I think my
fastest is a 4.5.
Was it sub 3? Something around 3. I don't remember. It was a while ago. I know I've sub 1 to regular Nergigante. Old school Nergigante pre-Iceborne. But anyway, point is like you can see these things, right? Like you can see these kinds of markers.
You have something like numerically to go off of.
Yeah. Well, I mean, all you can really see with like Genshin is how how fast someone clears the abyss, which like it's a single like standard point, and again, if you have that numerical advantage, like whatever, like ultimately, no matter how well they play, I'm not gonna be able to clear as fast as someone who does literally 3 times my damage. That's it's just not possible. And like and then also just how big their individual numbers are, and then Genshin is so convoluted in terms of how the damage numbers work. It's so hard to tell what the fuck is going on with some of these teams. Like there will be there'll be recommendations of people doing these team setups, even though mechanically they don't work. Like setting up let's say setting up like vaporize reactions where you apply hydro and then like apply water and then apply fire or pyro on top of it to amplify the pyro damage. But in certain setups, because the way elemental gauges work and the way internal cooldowns work, you're not actually vaporizing the pyro damage, and like you're not actually getting a damage increase. But you can't tell because there's too many fucking numbers going on. And when people are already hitting 50k a hit anyway, they don't notice. There's like shit like that it's like,
oh man,
that's funny.
Yeah. There's stuff like electro teams where a good electro team setup will have like up to 15 to 25 numbers going off a second on screen. So who knows what the fuck's happening? We literally have for like electro team setups, we've literally had to like record stuff at 60 FPS and go frame by frame and count the reaction. Sometimes the numbers don't even show up. So we have to count the special effects sometimes. Like,
oh my gosh.
Genshin theory crafting is so arcane, but that's also what makes it fun. But like, it's a different beast.
So
Jesus.
So like in terms of like Monster Hunter, right? Like playing meta does actually have like a benefit, and in some cases is like required. Like let's say in Elatrion, and then like even
because
going
of the
beyond
time
that
limits and whatnot.
Yeah, exactly. And then like even going beyond that, like in other games, like doing best in slot for like Savage content in Final Fantasy 14. Like in those kind of games, playing meta does matter. Does it matter in Genshin? Can like all the content be cleared with like run of the mill, middling equipment?
Except Abyss content, yes. The thing is, like, the difficulty between like Abyss, which is like the quote unquote end game, and like I mean, I've done Abyss runs with like teams with like half as many characters in them and shit like that, and like got a max star clears. I mean, they are time trials is the thing though. Like they are time trials, so you have to hit a certain time break point to do it. But like the difficulty between like 9-starring Abyss 12, which is like the most difficult achievement you can do in the game basically because it's the only end game content, versus like anything in the story or overworld or domains or anything else other than Abyss content is like 3 to 4 times harder. So like you can easily run whatever team you want. You can be completely free to play. You can and like not care about optimizing and clear everything else except for that. Yeah. And then to beat that, I don't know about recently because I know the Abyss has gone more difficult and changed, but I haven't kept up with Genshin since I quit. But like you could run purely free to play teams and win, but it was not easy. You had to really min-max stuff, and you had to really farm decent enough gear to do it, and you had to really know what you were doing. And part of like what a lot of theory crafters enjoy doing was figuring out those kinds of cheap teams that could do it. Yeah. But like,
I would say like for Genshin, like I'm surprised that kind of content and like that kind of design isn't more popular, right? Because like for me, I don't want to drop like $200 a banner to play this game, even at like a middling level, right? I would love to just be able to do like 100% free to play, bare minimum, and get clears and still be able to play the game.
And there is definitely a community that's interested in that. Like there is definitely a community that is interested in that. It's just a small percentage. Because there's also even just like a small percentage of the community even cares about the Abyss.
Gotcha.
And then like a small
that's
percentage,
interesting too.
Really?
Yeah. Well,
that's actually
it's such a minor part of the game, and you only get to do it once every 2 weeks. Like once you clear the Abyss, you get your rewards, and the rewards suck. You mostly do it for the flex. Like the rewards fucking suck.
So it's not a good end game then. It's just like, end game content.
It's like every 2 weeks you get like $3 to $4 worth of primo gems out of it, basically, out of like full clearing it, and it's not easy to do. And like you get maybe $3 to $4 worth of primo gems. It resets every 2 weeks, and then every 6 weeks they change it to a new Abyss. So you mostly do it for the challenge and mostly do it for the flex. Like,
I guess.
Yeah. And like even if you can't like full like hit 9-star, like the time limit of 9-star requirements, if you even just get like half the stars, you're still getting a few bucks of primo gems, and you cleared the thing. So like people just don't really care that much, and that's the only content that needs you to like be efficient like that.
Man,
and
it's
on top
really
of that,
surprising.
it's a gacha game, so like a lot of the community just cares about waifus and the story. And admittedly,
Yeah,
the story is
absolutely.
good, the writing is
pretty
good, the character designs are really good, the characters are written in really good ways, because that's how they make money, is by making waifus and husbandos you want to spend money for.
Oh yeah, you want like a good story and like the characters to be really well developed, because otherwise,
so people want to pay money for it.
Exactly.
Well developed.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
that
I
too.
still use Hu Tao emotes. I still use Hu Tao emotes. I don't play Genshin anymore.
But that's the crazy thing too, right? Is that like I've never played Genshin. I've never downloaded it. I've never thought about downloading it. Nothing. I've watched maybe 2 or 3 people play it. I can recognize and I know at least a middling amount of information about every character in the game. And that's what's crazy about this franchise, is that it's that popular, being a gacha game, right? I'm really curious to see, because like they had the other game, they had a Honkai Impact,
which
it's
still
looks more fun to me personally, because I've seen Kanta play it and it's a lot more actiony.
Yeah.
So it'd be a lot more like Monster Hunter-y and Soulsy for me, I guess, but
it's not nearly as popular, which is wild, and it's kind of a similar design too.
I mean, they're still promoting it. It's not like they're not promoting it.
They're still like developing it, but like, I mean, there's a lot of factors that went into Genshin's success. I think the whole Breath of the Wild format's a big part of it, definitely.
Okay.
Because like Genshin is, I haven't played other gacha games, but from talking with a lot of people who have a lot more experience in gacha games, Genshin is very, very ungenerous with the amount of primos they give you, like the premium currency. Other games will give you like a shitload of free rolls for free if you just play every day and do all the stuff and everything. And the battle pass is like a lot more worth it. But Genshin is very generous with the content they give you to play.
Oh, absolutely.
Like the amount of hours you can spend exploring, going around, finding quests and stuff. Like if you don't spend any money, if you can resist the urge to spend money on waifus in Genshin, then you can play it for the next fucking probably 10 years is how long it's going to take them to finish a goddamn story at this point. And you will have like a really good JRPG to play on weekends for basically that entire time.
Oh, absolutely. With the amount of money they're making, they're going to create more plots and everything to kind of progress the story even further, just to have like, it's like, oh, hey.
I mean, they're drip feeding it to us, but yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's just, oh, hey, you know that side story I never explained? We're going to explore it now, so we're going to go into here. And
then every new character has like their character story right before they come out and stuff like that. They have all these events where they have all the little mini games and more character lore and interactions that happen from it. Yeah,
it's really
smart. It's fun,
and the graphic design choice is actually genius too, because that's never gonna get outdated.
It's a beautiful game.
Yeah,
it's a beautiful game. Like, it's a beautiful game. It's fun to play. It's just, it is ultimately a gacha game, so I don't recommend anyone play it unless they can resist the urge to spend money to swipe credit card. Because it's the fact definitely designed to milk that out of people. So.
Oh yeah, they made it easy now too, because now PayPal's implemented it in it as well. So it's very easy to just click the button and pay for more.
No, that's a problem and a half.
Also, Genshin, like I said, was a lot worse for my mental health, and a big part of that too was like the rapidity of things. Because it's constant like updates, and the algorithm simply favors people who release very quickly, and like who release stuff like very quickly after a character drops. Like you want to basically get your first guide out within like 24 hours, and that's just not feasibly possible for me to do when I want to be like mathematically accurate about recommendations. And then on top of that, the algorithm very much promotes people who are basically hyping up any new character that comes out. People also want you to say that character is good, then tell them how strong the character actually is. And so both of those factors led to me realizing that like between like the research time and the math time and the script writing time and the video editing time, I was probably putting in anywhere from like 3 to 4 times more time than a lot of the videos that were getting several times my views were from smaller channels, because I just wasn't playing the algorithm, and I wasn't willing to play the algorithm because I would rather quit than like give up I guess it felt like I would be like giving up my integrity to not be doing the like mathematical analysis based content.
Absolutely.
And proper power level assertions kind of content I was doing. I just wasn't. I would rather quit than do that, so I did.
Yeah. I mean, because like at that point, you know, like you kind of brand yourself on this approach, you know, like I'm not just going to say something is good because I think it's good or it feels good or I want it to be good. Like I'm going to break it down mathematically and scientifically deduce that it is better than X, Y, or Z.
Yep.
You know,
Well,
like, and that's
the best way to do this. But yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And you know, the moment that you sacrifice that, it not only are you, like you said, sacrificing your integrity, you're also changing the content, right? Now it's different content. You know, it's no longer this cool mathematic exploration.
No, it's updates.
It's just, hey, this thing's coming out, I'm excited for it, and I think it's going to be good. And that could be like a 4-second video, but we're going to stretch it out to 13-14 minutes instead, so we can put an ad in the middle of it.
Yep. And a big part of it too was that like I probably could have had an easier time with that if I had actually used leak data, and then basically did calculations off of leak data, and then just basically adjusted that when I actually got the live character and was able to adjust things. But I am personally just against using leak data for that kind of thing in general. But B, like one of the like only 2 big Monster Hunter dramas we had was with the person who later basically became like the main source for leak information in Genshin. And because of personal drama related reasons and not wanting to in any way support that person who is a genuinely terrible human being, Tuner and I just weren't willing to use leak information in Genshin. And so ultimately, like, just so many things kind of collided of just being like, this is no longer healthy. Like, it was financially sustainable, sure, but it was no longer healthy. And I'd rather go back to doing work that makes me happy and gives me time to spend with my spouse who I enjoy spending time with, and isn't as detrimental to my physical and mental health. I mean, fuck, when I started working at restaurants again, within like 4 months, I think I dropped like 35 pounds or something.
Let's go.
Just from being on my I have a very ectomorphic body type. I shed weight very quickly when I'm actually active, but and physically I'm also just much healthier in general. A big part of that too is like actually spending less time on screens though, because I had to recognize that because of work I was very much like deep, like nips deep in my like screen time and gaming addiction issues. And that was also, and like there's a interesting amount of more recent emerging research looking at how that affects your dopamine receptors and like how it actually mimics like chemical addictions and other things. But basically, like right now I'm on a schedule of I need to give myself dopamine breaks. So I spend 2 hours doing like screen time, like dopamine screen time things, whether that's like watching videos or playing video games, whatever. And then I give myself 2 hours off before I do another session to give my dopamine receptors a chance to basically reset. And to stop those those addiction hooks from latching in. And it makes it a lot harder, and like that also makes it basically impossible for me to do full-time YouTube work at this point because I wouldn't be able to put the hours in at this point, but that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, have you ever considered like hiring editors or hiring other people to kind of help you produce the content you want to make?
So like Tuner and I have talked about this before, and ultimately the problem is the editing is like the part that takes the least amount of time for the videos.
Oh, really?
Especially because our editing style is really simple. If I have everything together, footage and script wise, it takes me like, for like a 15-20 minute video, probably takes me like maybe 40 minutes to max an hour to record the audio. I don't have to do necessarily a lot of takes. Especially because I have that kind of like relatively deadpan, like cold British sarcastic math robot branding thing going on, so I don't really have to worry about emoting too hard.
I love your voice personally, but
well, thank you. But I don't really have to worry about like emoting too hard or like trying to give the right energy off or coming off as genuine. I just talk like a robot and people like it because I'm talking about math. So like recording the audio isn't that difficult. The editing is very quick because we do very basic editing stuff. Even on the more complex stuff, it's very quick, relatively speaking. But like the part that takes the longest amount of time is the actual research and testing and frame counting and math and spreadsheets, and then writing the scripts takes a while too, because like, I mean, part of what interests me about data analytics work is the need to have communication skills on top of like a technical mindset and technical background for it, because you have to convey like the results of the data analytics to like the stakeholders and the decision makers and the managers and whatnot, so they can use the information, but they may not necessarily be data literate, right? And that's the same thing I had to do in the YouTube videos of like, I've lost count of the amount of comments that have said like, you have made me more interested in math than any of my teachers or school ever did.
There you go.
And like, ultimately, I can't just dump numbers at people and assume that they're mathematically literate. I have to say it in a way that I have to basically present the information in a way that is processable by like
the majority
people without that same background.
Yeah. That's like one of the hardest things to do when you have a product that is based on science and mathematics that you need to give to someone, because that's what I'm an environmental scientist, so I do something similar, but instead of raw analytical data, I do it with raw environmental data. And so like I'll hand someone a report which we put in very layman's terms right in the introduction of the report. Do you have a problem or don't you have a problem, and why? And I always get a call like an hour later. So what does this mean? Am I good? Yeah, you're good. It says no. it says no problems, no further assessment. You're good. So okay.
They probably didn't read it.
That's in here? Like, yes, it's in there.
Put it in bold, increase the font twice as large, put it in bold, and put it in like impact typeface.
Dude. The number of times, because like it's more or less like we had to write an abstract for these people, right? I had to write an abstract to the abstract just to get them to read the fucking abstract, and I lose my mind sometimes.
Well, and that's the difficult part, is like trying to bridge that gap where you want to. I feel like it's especially difficult when you're like a content creator and you have to also like give enough information so that people trust that people know that your numbers are correct, or you've done the work and you're not just saying shit out of your ass, while also making it understandable to people. And
that's the hard thing too for YouTube content. Because that's the hard thing too for YouTube content. You don't know like how fluent your audience is, so you have to assume that no one knows anything. At least like for me, I know that these guys are like property developers, right? They do this all the time. Like I've sent you like 4 reports. I know you're going to understand this. So I have like some level to like gauge their receptiveness to this. But when you just have like, 100,000 people are going to watch this video and like really try to like regurgitate it, you have to treat that every viewer is an idiot, right? And you just do not understand this, and I need to teach it to you.
Yeah, pretty much. Like I pretty much have to go into every video assuming that every viewer or everyone watching this video does not have an understanding of basic algebra. That's a
hard thing to do.
That's a challenging thing to do. A lot of percentages, lots of quoting percentages, lots of making charts.
Oh man, I mean, it comes to the point where it's just like, especially with Monster Hunter, like it was. I imagine that's like might be easier to make meta builds over, because they kind of like describe it for you as well.
Well, and it's easier too because like we had hard stats we could like point out with Monster Hunter of like. We have EFR, right? Effective roll in Monster Hunter, which is considering all the factors like your sharpness, your crit rate, your crit damage, your attack boost, everything like this. You can come up with a solid number that is your effective roll, which is this is the number that your damage is based off of. Like if you have an attack that has like a 50 motion value, it deals 50% of this number to the thing you're hitting, times whatever the hit zone value is. But like we have a solid number that does that, right? And the movesets stay consistent. And then I mean there's elemental weapons get a bit more complicated because you have effective element, and then you have to account for like elemental procs versus like raw hits in combos and whatnot. But like for the most part it's a lot easier. With things like Genshin, the problem is that like your number gets higher with the gear, but what matters more is your team composition and your ability load and your ability order and what basically order you're propping your abilities and attacks in. And like that's where it gets much more complicated, because now we just have to like basically just straight crunch DPS, like DPS numbers or damage per rotation numbers, rotation times, all this kind of stuff. And it's much more complicated than just like, oh, this build make this number happen. This build make this number happen.
You have to base it off of like 3 or 4 characters at a time to like utilize like the best number for the max DPS, and it's just
it's kind of
mention like all the gear, like not to mention like your weapons at the very least are like still gacha based, so like even then you have to make assumptions about stuff.
No, and it's really wild too, because like especially for Genshin, like just for like figuring out those numbers, not only do you have like the build for each character, then the comp for each team, and then how effective can you utilize that? Like even just missing one proc changes everything.
Oh yeah,
you know?
no,
Like it's insane.
Yeah, no, missing one proc can completely ruin your entire rotation. In some like pyro vaporized teams, if you do one ability out of order, the next half of your fire damage will not vaporize.
Oh
Yeah.
Like it because of how the elemental gauge system works, and like it's just it's wild that like how precise some of these teams can be. And then you also have to consider like how realistically practical it is for people to pull these off. Like there are some teams that are very strong that aren't necessarily the strongest teams, but they're very consistent and easy to play. Like you don't require ridiculously complex and precise like ability orders to do correctly.
Human input versus task input.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, Genshin's weird.
Genshin's weird.
It's
a weird game.
It's weird and crazy more complex than I ever realized it would be from like face value. Like if you were to look at it and you're just like, oh, this looks like a lot of fun. The moment you dive into it, you're like, oh.
I mean, but that's like the thing too, is that like realistically, what's the percentage of the player base that would try to play the game at this level? You know, especially considering like even just the damage system and like proccing and all of that, even in itself feels like random and kind of a gotcha
You'd be
system.
surprised. I had a lot of people coming to my chat that were like wanting to utilize as much as possible, and then whenever they saw me doing something differently, they'll be like, "Hey, you're doing it wrong." I'm like, "I don't give a fuck. I'm just slashing things. Just let me do things."
Well, yeah, like, and that's. I mean, realistically speaking, though, like a handful of people versus the millions that actually like play the game. Like, I'd be really curious to see like the amount of people that actually go out of their way to like learn that, right? Because like Monster Hunter, that was the natural progression, you know, like the game literally pushes you towards obtaining the better gear because it's in the game and static, consistent, like you get that.
Nothing
right?
you have to pay for.
It pushes you toward it like naturally pushes you towards that. So like these are things that people naturally seek out. What's the like highest DPS is the most searched term along with Monster Hunter on YouTube, right? Like it's just that's just what it is. So yeah, it's like the natural progression for people there. For Genshin, doesn't seem like it's necessary. So and most like, people are just gonna play waifu teams, which that's what I would do. I'd play husbando team.
And like I think a lot of people don't realize too about like in Genshin is that like it is a surprisingly difficult game to play. In that like I mean there are games like Monster Hunter and like the Souls franchise and shit like that where people can you can tell that like, you know, okay, someone who knows what they're doing, right? Like they do much better. But it's a lot harder to realize you're fucking up in Genshin because of how much is going on and how much like single adjustments in your rotation, like a rotation being the entire order of buttons you press basically. And every rotation period, which is normally about how long your longest alt's cooldown is. But like how much like a little mechanical difference can make. Like there are teams, like I said, if you press one button correctly versus incorrectly, like put it before one ability versus the other, your team's DPS spikes by over 30%. And so like a lot of there is a distinct lack of content actually telling people, hey, just do this team rights and you'll do better. Like it's amazing how big of a difference like just playing the team correctly does. But it's not as evident. Like it's not nearly as evident. And like a big problem too is like, you know, a lot of the whales don't know how to like structure their teams properly, much less play them properly. So they see a lot of people who use these whales as examples of how to play are like, my numbers aren't hitting nearly as hard. I guess I gotta spend more money to get more expensive weapons or get more refreshes to farm more RNG artifacts for more damage numbers or to get like more constellations on my character, etc.
Because like for them it doesn't matter because they have the equipment that's doing 30% more damage anyways. So like they can press buttons out of order and make mistakes.
They can literally take one of their carries, and if they just don't die and can dodge well enough, which most of them aren't very good at dodging, but if they can just dodge well enough, they'll be able to like clear the hardest content in the time limit just with that character. Like honestly speaking, but
yeah. That's wild. I'm actually really surprised that there isn't like more content around rotation based, strategy, because like you see that stuff in Final Fantasy all the time, and like that's one of the first things I do when I start a new class in Final Fantasy 14 is like I research the rotation.
Oh yeah.
But I guess it's just it's more, I don't know if it's like more prevalent there, or I'm just an outsider looking into the Genshin community.
It's just
it
like,
might be more popular, but
I think it's just the community in general cares more about that stuff, like in those games, like because like stuff is in Final Fantasy, you can't spend $1,000 to make your character just like hit twice as hard, right? Or 50% harder. Like you have to learn these things if you want to clear the harder content later on as you progress through the game. It's not the case with Genshin. You can just swipe credit card and win. Like you can just swipe credit card and win if you want to. And so I think there's just less interest in that. And also I just think there's less interest in like min-maxing and optimizing in general, and then within that there's even less interest in proper rotation stuff compared to just like, what team should I run, what gear should I put on my characters, etc., right? Like that's what people care more about. So rotation videos, I mean, most people in the community, even in the theory crafting community, a large percentage might not even know what a rotation is, like what the term rotation means. They'll understand the team composition and the build, but they won't understand what a rotation is.
Gotcha.
So yeah,
it's interesting. It's wild.
It's a weird community, but
it's a very interesting community for sure. But yeah, I mean, getting into that, like, how did you get involved with, like, I guess I'm actually really curious how you got involved in Monster Hunter and Genshin in general, because when you got involved in Genshin, it kind of was out of the blue a little bit when I saw it.
Genshin was just me wanting a break from Monster Hunter, and Genshin happened to come out around that time, and all of my like shitter Discord friends who are all weebs and VTuber simps and whatnot were playing Genshin. I was like, let me try this Genshin thing. I was like, oh, this is pretty fun. And then I started like fucking around with like the rotations and everything. Like, oh, these mechanics are really interesting. And I just got really nips deep into understanding the mechanics and team comps and stuff. Like, wow, this is super neat. And then I just got into it because of that, basically.
Yeah.
It just like I said, they did a really good job with the easy to pick up but very difficult to master kind of mechanic system, and I wanted to master the mechanic system.
There you go. That's awesome.
With Monster Hunter, so Monster Hunter World was technically it technically wasn't my first Monster Hunter. I played Try on the Wii back in the day. And I cleared like the village quests, and I never did the high rank stuff because I didn't want to play online. So like, cause Wii online. Yeah, so like that was my only other experience with Monster Hunter prior. But World came out, and I am like, the biggest series I am a fanboy of is the Souls franchise, and just in general anything Hidetaka Miyazaki puts out. Hence, I'm sure we'll be talking about Elden Ring later.
Oh, absolutely! Like right after this.
The only game series that I have probably equivalent hours in to the Dark Souls franchise is Monster Hunter, and that's because I did it as a job for 2 years.
Yeah,
like I did it as a full-time job for 2 years. But I probably have well over 3,000 hours in the Souls franchise at this point. I've done an endless amount of I've done so many different like challenge runs and whatnot in the original Dark Souls and some in DS2. I haven't done as much in DS3 because that's kind of when I started playing other games around that time.
Yeah.
But I've done so many. I've been playing Dark Souls games for a long time, and Monster Hunter had a very similar feeling to the Dark Souls thing. Of the whole you got to dodge, you got to roll, you got to learn your combos, you got to learn your positioning, you got to master these fights. Except for unlike in Souls games where you master the fight, win once, and go, well, fuck, I guess that skill set is completely out the window now because I don't get to fight him again. Monster Hunter's like, oh cool, I can dive back in and I can fight this Nergigante again and try to do a little better this time.
Yeah.
And all that kind of stuff, and both have weirdly complex movesets for action RPGs for all the weapons. It is weird how complex a single weapon in Dark Souls moveset is compared to a lot of other games, even though it's very basic. But the tools they give you, the timings of things, how much damage they hit, how much stagger they deal and whatnot, gives you a very interesting moveset, even if you're just doing simple I have a weapon builds. And Monster Hunter, I mean, I will still say that every single individual weapon in Monster Hunter has a more complex moveset and playstyle, and playstyle complexity than basically every main weapon in any other action RPG I can think of.
Yeah.
It's insane. And I play Switch Axe. Yeah. Switch Axe, which has the most complex moveset.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's right, CB mains. You heard it here first. Switch Axe is more harder.
Technically, Charge Blade has like more moves, but Charge Blade has like 4 moves.
I have a guard point, I have a charge slash, I have a morph, and I have a charge.
I mean,
and then SAED. Yeah. I guess they have 5.
Yeah, it depends on your playstyle. In like Rise, it's like, okay, either I'm doing SAED or I'm doing Cabbage Axe or I'm doing Axe Hopper. But then I think the best way I ever heard it put is that Charge Blade doesn't have a big moveset, it just has a lot of chores. Because like with Charge Blade, you have to get your files charged up. You have to get your files powered up. You have to charge up your files. You have to put your files into your shield. You have to get your files again, and then you can use your files to actually do stuff after that. Unless you also want to also get your sword charged for sword moves, then you have to do that as well. So like charge, and then every like 3 minutes you have to repeat this again. So like Charge Blade just has a lot of chores. You have to learn a lot of like combos to do the chores first so you can actually play your weapon. But once you actually play your weapon, you've got like 3 or 4 moves you use.
Oh my god.
Well, Switch Axe,
I mean,
Switch Axe doesn't use
Switch Axe.
Yeah. And then like Switch Axe doesn't use all of its moveset, especially if you're doing optimal play. And in Rise, it's very ZSD focused for sure, but you still use a lot. Oh my
gosh.
Yeah, it's very ZSD focused in Rise, unfortunately. But like, yeah, you use a lot more of your moveset. I would say out of every weapon, especially in Rise, because Rise with its switch skills kind of made a lot more weapons one note. Like Hammer used to be probably the weapon you actually use the most of your moveset for, because almost every move except like 3 in World and Iceborne's Hammer moveset had a use. And in a lot of fights, like, you know, okay, in this window, I can use this move. Okay, if I want to build up stun, this move has the exact amount of animation commitment I need to build up max stun in this opening, etc., etc. Like, Hammer used a lot of its moveset. Now, meta Hammer play in Rise is just spam Meteor Smash and hit thing in the face.
Yeah.
Like, it's...
much.
Yeah. And, like, Sword and Shield was also like that, and then Iceborne added Perfect Rush. And then Monster Hunter Sword and Shield speedruns became, how much Perfect Rush can I spam while praying not to get hit?
Yeah.
And then like...
I remember that. I rember Tuner like, being really upset with that when it came out.
Yeah.
I was upset with that too, because like, that's when, because pre Iceborne Sword and Shield speedruns for RTA were a lot of fun, were like really interesting.
Oh yeah, really
because it was Shield Bash and Falling Shield Bash, and I was like, this is so cool. And then now it's just Perfect Rush forever, because you can grab a Clogger and still Perfect Rush and get another Clogger. Huh.
Yep. And then even with Shield Bash, like with Shield Bash spam, still you use your Blade moveset for a lot of things.
Yeah,
and there were elemental SNS runs that didn't use Falling Bash that were very interesting, because all the moves had relatively similar-ish DPS, so it's kind of more of a situation which one you use for what situation and everything. And then Perfect Rush is like, oh, me do biggest number. Me just spam Perfect Rush.
Me raw.
Me raw Perfect Rush spam. Yeah, it was sad. It was kind of sad.
What the fuck?
So unfortunate. And then there's LS in Rise, which is just LSS spam or ISS spam. That's all it is.
Longsword. Longsword in World. Okay, like middle of the pack TA runs, middle of the pack speed runs. Iceborne. Okay, middle upper tier. Longsword in Rise. Best melee weapon.
Period.
Just fastest clears, but just fastest clears. Period. That also has the best defensive options in the game. I don't care what Lance players say. Longsword has the best defensive options in Rise.
I have nothing against people that like that use longsword, right? Like if you enjoy it, you enjoy it, right? I enjoy playing longsword and Rise too. Don't get me wrong. When your optimal combo for longsword is special sheath counter into an immediate special sheath again to counter into another special sheath to counter to Helmbreaker.
Hellbreaker.
That's the whole combo. Yep. That's the optimal combo, right? And it's really funny because like, you'll watch speedrunners, and the reason why they don't do ISS again is because they got a flinch and they can fit in a spirit combo. Cool. And then what do? Immediately ISS again.
ISS spam. Like, it's a very one-note playstyle, which is less interesting to me. It's also just weird to me that they buffed. Like, they buffed its damage compared to Iceborne, because Iceborne also had a very ISS focused playstyle. But they buffed the damage so much that like Longsword is just basically topping the charts for speedrun times.
Not to mention that if you miss it, you don't lose a gauge, and if you hit it, you gain a gauge.
It's easier too now because you don't lose gauge if you miss the timing.
Yeah,
they made it easier.
So it doesn't matter.
Play and gave it more damage.
I remember that, like playing especially like speedrunning with Longsword now for the whole game. Well, not the whole game, but like Apex %. There was a lot of that sometimes where I was getting the hang of it and I would nail the timing. I would never lose sharpness. I would just continuously just like keep going at it.
On top of that, you barely burn sharpness because you're not hitting the things a lot. You're hitting
only 3 hits, and it does like it's only 3 hits, and in RTA, this is the only thing I can really speak to. In RTA, it does like almost 400 damage, which compared to anything is fucking bonkers. And then you do a Helmbreaker for 75 damage, 7 procs each, and you're using Acnosome. Okay.
Yeah, whatever. Just
love this game.
Whatever. Lol, yeah. Cryzen every single Switch X build has to run fucking Polish, except for like Valstrax's Dragon Switch X. Cries.
Polish and freaking Rapid Morph and Stun Resist.
Rapid Morph. Oh, I don't run Stun Resist, I just reset.
Copium.
Yeah, no, but if I get stunned, if I cart basically. But yeah, I mean, Monster Hunter is also interesting from a build perspective because like part of I think what makes meta so appealing in Monster Hunter 2 is just how little trade-offs you can really make for defensive options. Yeah. Like in Iceborne, the only really worthwhile and efficient ones were to run health boost and to run maybe Divine Blessing. But like defense boost gave you such middling increases in effective health, it genuinely was not worth just running more damage to make the fight last a shorter period of time versus getting hit a little bit less.
Yeah.
And they removed health boost in Rise. So it's like, yeah, you can put stun resist in there, but like maybe you can run elemental resist, and like at the very least, like level 1 decos aren't as sought after anymore because attack boost and crit eye decos are level 2s now. But like it's like there's really not a lot of like defensive options that you can trade out damage for. So you might as run like max damage or close to max damage, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not like you have good defensive options that really increase your survivability that much, especially in Rise. But like if as opposed to that in like a Souls game, like there's a very noticeable trade-off for leveling up your health instead of leveling damage in Elden Ring. That's a big thing in like Souls games that like I was talking to a coworker about this because he has like very little experience in Souls games, but he's playing Elden Ring like everyone else is. And he was like, I don't know what to invest my levels in. Yeah, it's crazy that how big it's gotten.
Weird, it's a good game.
Of the Souls crowd. More so it's just surprising because it's a Souls game. But they did do a lot of really smart decisions in making it more accessible to other people, which is why a lot of people like I have 2 coworkers who both played a little Souls and couldn't get into it and like didn't like it, and they've both been playing Elden Ring nonstop.
That's me.
Yep.
Not the coworker, but just like that category.
No, he is the coworker. I'm kidding.
Lol. But yeah, and like they did a really impressive job adding in a lot of systems to make it more accessible and more forgiving, while also making it probably the hardest FromSoft game next to Sekiro, mechanically speaking. Like if you want to play just like how I generally play, which is basically TA rules with Dark Souls.
Yeah.
Where like I just use
I have weapon.
I have weapon. Maybe I have like spell that make weapon stronger. I have magic weapon, and I unga bunga and fight me and my weapon versus the monster. Like this is probably the hardest out of the Souls franchise.
Oh yeah.
Dark Souls 3 was more difficult than 2 and 1 for sure. 1 was definitely the easiest in retrospect. Like fucking like Margit, who's like literally the first mainline boss. I hope this isn't a spoiler for anyone, but like
I don't think so. I mean, I guess like a
like,
Capra Demon because I'm dumb, but that's
and like
we'll just preface this really quick. Hey, we're gonna talk about Elden Ring, so if you want to skip that, like just go like 20-30 minutes, just go to the end and then rewind backwards. Just listen to the end in reverse.
Reverse.
Yeah, that way they avoid all the spoilers.
Exactly.
Elden Ring spoilers. We're going to talk about Elden Ring now. It's time.
I mean, I want to try to minimize actual spoilers, but I feel at this point, the internet has made it okay to talk about Margit.
Oh my gosh. Can I just say real quick something about spoilers? Monster community, they're amazing. Spoilers, it's like they don't announce anything until like what, a week or two later. Then they start showing just things about like, oh yeah, this is who the last boss in Rise is, or last boss in Iceborne.
And like people will get shit in the content creators will get shit in the community if they put like the final boss's like face or something on like a thumbnail even. Like even something like that minor, they will get shit from the community about it.
Yes. Elden Ring comes out. No, Elden Ring comes out. Everyone spoils every single fucking boss in the game.
Shit.
Every single person on who I follow does this.
Yep, that's why I have not been living on social media this entire time.
It pisses me off so much because it's so easy. Anything Elden Ring that I post, because I usually don't use hashtags, but this is the reason why you should use hashtags, because you can mute terms on Twitter. And so I have muted for myself Elden Ring, hashtag Elden Ring, Elden Ring spoilers, hashtag Elden Ring spoilers. Anytime I post about Elden Ring, I just include both of those in it, just as a middling amount of effort to help people avoid spoilers. It is the easiest thing that people can do, and they still choose to go, LMAO, this boss fight is hard, and then post a picture of a fucking boss. And it's not like it's autoplay on Twitter. Like I can't stop it fast enough. Like you can't, put a content warning on a video. It just plays. Like whatever. All right, cool. I know that exists now, and a lot of people are just fucking rolling through this game. I have gotten one great rune myself, which that's like the main thing to gather.
Yeah,
all I'm doing
bosses are like the main bosses, I guess, for the story. And you have to kill, I think, 7 or 8 or something. I don't know.
I think it's 7. I don't know. Yeah, there's a bunch, but I've killed one of those, and then all I'm doing is just kind of like bumbling around, exploring and leveling up, and just trying to like gather shit just to make my experience a little more approachable.
Well, that's the thing about Elden Ring is that you can do that. Like before you fight the first big boss, you can do that. You can just explore and get like. Forget leveling. I think people focus too much on leveling in these games. They're like, oh, you're having difficulty with these mainline bosses. Just go back and when you're a few levels high, it's like levels don't matter that much. Like getting 10 more levels, even dumping it straight into health is only going to like maybe get you from being 2-shot or 1-shot or 2-shot to maybe 3-shot. Yeah, like it doesn't matter that much. What is a big deal is exploring and finding more flasks and finding flask upgrades. So now you have twice as many healing items, and they max heal you every time. It's finding the materials to upgrade your weapon, because a lot of people who haven't played Souls games in the past don't realize a single weapon level up is equivalent to 5 to 10 levels of your scaling stats. Like if you have a purely strength scaling weapon, you going from a +0 to a +1 is about as much AR attack rating increase as getting 5 to 10 levels of strength, depending on how well your weapon scales with that stats.
I mean, I would say even more so in the beginning, because most of the things that you pick up in the beginning are like B and C.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the 5-level thing is when you have like an S scaling. So
exactly.
And that's when they're single scaling weapons. Most weapons dual scale. So like it's a thing I've told my coworkers, and just in general, like I've half considered just making a really quick video of just like, hey, here's some random tips. He's like some random beginner tips for Elden Ring from someone with 3,000 hours in Souls games. Your build priorities should pretty much, if you're struggling, your build priorities should pretty much always be get enough of your damage stats to use your weapon, focus on leveling up your weapon as much as possible, and then just add to your vitality and stamina. Get to a comfortable point with vitality. I was looking at soft caps, and I think vitality soft caps at 40, so you don't really want to go over 40, but get to a comfortable point with your vitality, explore around, get more healing items, get more weapons, get more gear and stuff like that. Wear fucking armor, for fuck's sake. Don't be me and run around like a monkey naked. Wear fucking armor, for fuck's sake.
Put on pants, damn it.
Monkey.
Yeah. And like one of the stat design choices they made that makes Elden Ring so much more approachable is that your endurance stat increases your stamina and your equip load now.
Yeah.
So like, as opposed to being separate. stats like they were in DS3 and 2. And so like that means that a higher equip load means you can wear better armor, and also means with the same armor you may even go down in your equip load, which means you get faster rolls if you want to have faster rolls. But you can wear heavier armor to take less damage, or you can use bigger weapons or whatever. And then on top of that, more endurance means more stamina, which means you have less stamina management you have to deal with. You can spam rolls more often, you can be greedier and not have to worry about not having the stamina to roll. So like increasing your vitality and endurance are by far like the things you should focus on first if you're struggling. And like, don't be afraid to use the mechanics the game gives you. Summons are the most broken they've ever been in any game.
Summons are so good.
I use the wolf summons, the first one you get once against the first mainline boss. Yeah, like you get like no. Like
there's another mechanic.
2 or 3 hours in, you'll get access to summons, basically. Yeah,
yeah. Like you should talk to everyone you see and return to areas you've already been.
And rest at every single Grace campsite you see, basically.
Literally,
yeah.
This was one of the things too that I'm happy that I had at least experience with Dark Souls 3, so I understood to do this. And a lot of people aren't doing. Return to the places you've been. Just because you've explored it once doesn't mean it's going to be the same.
No, you can go back to that.
I've gone back. Yeah, I've gone back to some areas and like I've either like missed, exploring something, or there's a new NPC there. There's a new person there.
Which is always
definitely do that.
It's always been a thing in FromSoft games, but it's even bigger in Elden Ring.
It's crazy how big.
Yeah,
I can't use my 1060 graphics card for this.
Yeah, don't be afraid to like craft bombs and use bombs to chip down bosses. Like, don't be afraid to craft and use bombs. Don't be afraid to like play slow and like play carefully. You don't have to speed run bosses. Like, you don't have to speed run bosses. Timer. Play carefully. Learn what openings you can actually fit attacks in, and also don't be afraid to die. It's a fucking FromSoft game.
I will say this, Dark Souls 3, when I played that, dying was a bitch because you would die and your bonfire was so far away from the boss room that
now they just thought you would checkpoints fucking next to it.
Oh my god, thank you. So like that was my problem with playing Dark Souls. When I was playing Dark Souls 3, I'd get so anxious about dying on a fight because I had to go through that whole slog again, right? And then not to mention that the areas are designed to be punishing, right? Dark Souls 3, I don't care who you are, you can tell me till you're blue in the face, it's not. That game is designed to be punishing. It's designed to catch you off guard. It's designed to put you on edge. That is just the intent of the game.
That's
not this one.
Well, it's still punishing, but but they add a lot of mechanics to make it less punishing.
Exactly, but because that's the thing that I'm getting at, right? Is that
it happens of ambushes.
Well, yeah, but it happens once, and since the game is open world, you have a lot more options to like avoid that.
So, yeah, sure, right? I'm gonna skip this today.
You can jump. You have a horse. Yeah, you can just run away.
Oh my god! And like something spooked me. I'm on the horse. I'm out of here. I'm good. Right?
The guy at the beginning on the freaking horse. I was
Tree Sentinel.
I got scared this shit. I walked over to him and I was like, friend or foe? Foe. All right, run. Go to like the nearest building that has like a huge opening.
That's actually a fun thing about FromSoft design. Every single game has an early boss like that, or early situation like that teaches you it's okay to run. Like, literally in the first Dark Souls game, the Asylum Demon is very hard to fight. You're not supposed to be able to beat him at level 1. And if you can, you're clearly a vet who has probably reset a few deaths to try to do so.
Oh, yeah.
And the only way to advance without killing him is to run to the door behind him and continue the level.
Oh, yeah.
And you're not supposed to fight the Tree Sentinel. And if you do, he does a really good job of teaching you Elden Ring specific mechanics, like horseback combat and the importance of heavy and jumping attacks to stance break enemies and stuff like that. That like, when I tried to fight the Tree Sentinel normally, I was like, oh man, this is really hard. And like, it forced me to have to learn like the actual mechanics of Elden Ring, which is neat. That.
Oh yeah, but it was really funny because like there's a building that was like, it has like a huge hole in it. That I walked into. I was like, all right, I'm in this tunnel, I'm safe. He starts squeezing his way into the tunnel, and I'm like, get the fuck away from me!
Leave me alone, I'm bushed.
But oh my gosh, I've been for the few hours that I only played it so far, because I've been so fucking busy. Like it's been nice. The open world is absolutely gorgeous. I just can't record it or stream it right now. Oh my gosh, because there's no like change in like you can't gauge where you want the FPS to be, like frames per second. It's like do you want it at 60 or do you want it at 30 or do you want to like it's uncapped all the time.
It's just, you can try. I haven't tried it with Elden Ring, but in your NVIDIA settings, you can set a hard frame rate cap per program. But the problem is that the game still renders that, but it doesn't display past it. So like sometimes it actually just fucks with everything and makes the game look worse. You can try that in the NVIDIA settings.
I don't know if I want to do that. I'm just gonna wait till a 30 series
I'm on the right side of my eye, so sorry if my eye is very red, but that's why.
You're fine.
Oh,
you okay?
You're good. My eyes are like that all the time too.
Lol.
Okay.
But yeah, they did a lot of really interesting things. Like I will say that, like I said, the bosses are the hardest they've ever been. The first like main storyline quote unquote boss, not even like the first room boss, but the first like main storyline boss, which is from what I've heard, one of the ones that a lot of streamers and a lot of content creators rage quit on, is genuinely harder to fight than the final boss of DS1. He is genuinely harder than Gwyn.
Yeah.
And he has an additional, I think the big part of that reason being is he has the glaviness problem, where like it's hard to play against him reactively because he has because like, and this is the thing with a lot of the bosses I've noticed so far in Elden Ring, they have a lot of like feints and a lot of windups. They kind of have the Glavinus problem from Monster Hunter, where like Glavinus winds up his tail whip with a really long windup, and then the downswing is super fast, and it's hard to react to that downswing. So instead, you have to learn the timing of it, because unless you have really sharp reaction time, it's just hard to react to the actual downswing of Glavinus's tail stab. And it's the same thing with a lot of his moveset and a lot of movesets in Elden Ring in general, is that they have a lot of long windup attacks that you have to basically learn the timing of if you don't have the reaction time to actually react and dodge the downswing of the attack. Which makes it a lot more like requiring for you to kind of have the mental fortitude to iterate the fights and die and be able to learn the timings and learn the movesets, because it's a lot harder to react to a lot of them now with the way they designed it.
Yeah. I mean, because like one of the things that I do even in Monster Hunter is being able to anticipate the attack. So I name all the attacks, right?
Sure.
Like when I start fighting something, like I'm like, oh, this is going to be the poke. Oh, this is going to be the jump. Like this is going to be the double. Yeah, exactly. And so like when I start doing that and like I start naming things, I can start like I try to like start to anticipate what the next thing is going to be, you know?
Yep.
That like always helped me.
And that's a big thing with like Souls games in general, is that like you were talking about the whole punishing thing earlier. I've always said that Souls games are not actually that difficult. Monster Hunter is actually harder than Souls are. Because you have about half as many iframes on your rolls. Like I don't think people realize how many invincibility frames Dark Souls games give you.
There's a lot. And they even give you like
so much.
In Dark Souls 3, there's one where like when you dodging, you can't turn invisible to have even more frames.
Oh god, the fucking like, so yeah, that's the something Karthus ring in Dark Souls 3.
Yeah.
They had the ninja ring in Dark Souls 1 that turned your roll into a cartwheel with more iframes.
Yeah.
Dark Souls 2 was the weirdest because you had a stat that determined your iframes, so your iframes were variable depending on how much you leveled the stat. Yeah, it was weird.
How good is your roll?
Yeah, how good? I think it was called agility. It's like how good you roll, basically. But like, and DS3 and Elden Ring. In Elden Ring, you just have so many iframes. Like, if you're used to iframing attacks in Monster Hunter, Dark Souls is a lot easier to iframe in. That's why Tuner, when he started playing Dark Souls 3, was like, "This is really easy."
Caveat.
Like, yeah.
Caveat to that is because, at least on controller, I don't know about keyboard and mouse, but on controller, you only have one bind for both sprinting and dodging.
Yes.
And your dodge doesn't happen until you release the button. That has been the biggest learning curve for me. And then not to mention that if you're holding the button and you get hit and you let go of the button, you dodge after your hit animation. So you buffer a dodge animation directly into the next attack.
Elden Ring has much worse buffering. Has much like longer buffering periods, and I kind of hate it. There's been a lot of times where I fuck up a roll and get hit, and then I hit because I fuck up the roll a little bit too late, and I'm not pressing anything, and I immediately roll after the hit, and then I die because I get hit again.
Yeah.
So
that is
Elden
my
Ring has
only
got a
gripe
lot
with
more
the game
buffering
right now.
my big gripe is I hate that they added crouching, because I've had to rebind my L3 to like my up D-pad instead, because also if you dodge and press L3 at the same time and press L3 right before the dodge, you won't roll until your crouch animation is done.
Oh, I happened to me. I
have died so many times to that I had to rebind my crouch to a different button.
That happened to me too, where I would just like, I would get into an action and then like I couldn't do anything. I was crouching. I was like, what the fuck? Oh, okay. Well, nah.
Yeah. Like, yeah, like, nah.
You can
like,
jump out of a crouch, but you can't roll out of a crouch?
No, you can roll, but you can't roll until the crouch animation finishes.
Oh, right, yeah.
So if you're trying to iframe something, the entire time you would otherwise be using invincibility frames, you're crouching, and so you hit.
Yeah, just don't do that then.
Yeah, basically. Well, that's my problem, is that like my muscle memory is so tuned to like so quickly flicking my left control stick to dodge things in the correct direction. I press L3 a lot on accident. I just switched out the keybinds. I switched out the keybinds with my up D-pad, so now my L3 changes what spell I'm on, and I only have one spell equipped. So
that's just crazy.
You only need the one.
Have you been streaming Elden Ring on YouTube, or are you just mostly just kind of playing through it?
I streamed twice, but I've been recording it. I've been releasing a Let's Play series. I don't know if I'm gonna keep releasing it, but I've been recording every session because I actually just enjoy like talking to the camera and stuff during it. It's just that right now I don't want to put the time into actually putting the videos together and uploading them and doing all of the upload stuff and everything, rather than just play more Elden Ring right now.
Yeah,
because I don't get a lot of like free time to do this. I get like maybe 2 hours a day at max,
whenever you
maybe
can.
4 on some days. So like I'd rather just play Elden Ring right now, especially because it's so much longer than previous Souls games were. But I have all the recordings, so I may like end up just releasing those incrementally at some point.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, Elden Ring. Yeah, like what I was saying is that like I'm not saying that Souls games aren't difficult. But the thing that I think people mean when they say a Souls game is difficult is not that it's difficult, it's punishing.
Yeah.
Like all Souls games are like, they are not as hard as Monster Hunter. Monster Hunter is a lot harder to play than Dark Souls in terms of just the raw mechanics, right? The raw, like how easy it is to iframe stuff, how hard it is to die, all these kinds of things. It's a lot harder in Monster Hunter, although Monster Hunter has a lot of soft difficulty mechanics you can make use of, like mantles and whatnot, and Iceborne, and they give you and like you can just farm up a fuckload of healing items if you really want to have a shitload of healing. You have palicos and stuff that can draw aggro, you have traps, etc., etc.
Yeah.
But
so many layers.
The thing about Souls games is they're very punishing, because when you fuck up, and especially if you fuck up and panic, you get fucked.
So be honest.
Like how many times have you died because you fucked up a roll and you panic, so you panic roll and immediately die afterwards?
Like, that is Sister Freedom. Is that her name? Dark Souls 3. What was Bucket Man?
Yeah.
Holy shit! There was like the final stage of that fight. I would freak out like a lot because it's just like I make one small wrong move and I'm just like shit, and then I think all right, stop freaking out. Then I'm freaking out about not freaking.
Yeah, so that is exactly. And so like the thing is like when you panic, you get punished really hard. And Dark Souls is punishing because like the Estus or like the flask. I keep calling it Estus, but like the flask takes a while. And the thing is, you have to find an opening to do that, which normally means if you get hit, you then have to now dodge another attack or combo just to get a heal fit in. And then on top of that, because of the buffering and everything else, and because of stamina especially, if you fuck up with your stamina management or you fuck up a roll and you panic, you can easily get 2 comboed on and die, or you can easily roll off a ledge, or if you make a little mistake, you can lose all of your ruins or your souls. And so like Dark Souls is not like, compared to like doing a no-hit run in like a Monster Hunter fight versus like a no-hit run of like a certain boss in Dark Souls, it's easier to do it in Dark Souls. But Dark Souls punishes you really hard. And that's part of what makes the game so enjoyable to me, and why I have 3,000 hours in it, and why like the community meme is get good, is because like a thing I feel like a lot of people don't know who aren't in the Souls community is that 95% of the time when someone says get good, they aren't like trying to be toxic or hateful to you.
It's just
it's about the mentality of improve. Yeah, it's about improving. Dark Souls is about improving. Like it's one of the few games where like dying is part of the core mechanics. You're supposed to die. You shouldn't be afraid of dying. You shouldn't feel bad about dying, because dying means that you've had more opportunities to learn the moveset, to learn how to do the fight, to learn how to go through the area. Now you know that there's a guy who will backstab you around the corner, etc.
Yeah.
Like, you're supposed to die and you're supposed to iterate and learn and improve. And that's why the community meme is get good, because every single one of us had to get good. No matter how talented, how good your reaction, no matter how much of an esports pro gamer you are, you're gonna die at some points unless you learn from the death. And like that's through like my experience playing like the Souls franchise, I've realized my weird superpower is my inability to tilt.
Yeah.
At least in this game, it's my inability to tilt. I think it's part of what I've always had like a very learning focused mindset, but I think it's part of what appeals to me about Dark Souls so much is like if you go like the first Elden Ring video I uploaded onto YouTube channel, anyone can check it out if you want. It's about me dying 102 times at level 1. Because there's like a secret boss you can find in the tutorial area before you can even level up if you pick a specific gift when you start the game. And I found them
so cool.
And decided, I fought him once, and I was like, okay, well, that was a fun sidetrack. And then the stake of Marika was like next to it. It's like, oh, I can just fight him again immediately. Okay, fought him again. Went, oh, this guy one-shots me with every attack except for certain like hand attacks that leave me with 5 health. And I do like 50 damage a swing with my stick. And this is going to take me at least 70 to 80 hits to kill this guy. But I think I could beat him. So I spent the next 3 hours at 102 deaths doing effectively a no-hit run against this guy that took a 7-minute fight when I finally did it and beat him.
That's wild. I mean,
and the entire time, like, I was having fun. I didn't get tilted because every time I was like, "Fuck! I need to time that better. Fuck! I need to do this against this move. I need to react to this move this way. Oh, in this downtime, I can fit this combo in here." Like I'm just learning. That's the mindset
you need with these types of games. Is like you need.
That's what they test.
You can't just continuously die and just be like,
and get frustrated and tilt. Yeah,
you need to be like, oh. Okay, I know what I did wrong there. I'm gonna like do this again and kind of go at it and see what I could do differently.
Try something different this time. And like Elden Ring gives you like I'm basically a TA Souls player, right? And like for me, it's just learning the moveset, learning what I can fit in what openings, what the best strategy. Should I go for just pokes against this guy? Should I go for charged heavy spams? Should I go for jumping heavies in the openings I can? Try to get like a critical opening or something. Stuff like that. Like figuring out those general strats, but then it's just like learning the moveset, learning what I can fit into every opening, what openings I can even fit shit in, because I use ultra great swords, and some like openings I literally can't hit them in time. Like I just physically swing too slow. And stuff like that. Like especially because they added jumps, so jumps add an additional way to dodge stuff. There's a lot of ground slam attacks in this game that you can jump and immediately counterattack with like a heavy jumping attack because you're dodging the attack with the jump and starting your attack animation. If you've like as you play through Elden Ring, you'll notice there's a lot of ground slam shockwave attacks, and you're supposed to jump those. There's a lot of low sweeping attacks, you can jump those. It is a bit riskier for sure, and sometimes you have to be careful. You might have to do like a sprinting jump to dodge it because you have to dodge the actual weapon that's slamming down as well.
There you go.
But yeah, those are good openings, and jumping heavies add a lot of stance damage, so you can open people up for the critical hits where you like freeze frame them and like beat them in the face.
Elden Ring I didn't really even consider that because like I knew I thought about it in the way that like I thought about it as like a hitbox animation, right? But if the slam attacks are just the hitboxes just on the ground, then that makes perfect sense. I know there was one slam attack where the animation was longer than the iframes you had.
Exactly.
Unless you dodged it perfectly.
And you dodged into it. That's
or out of it.
Dodge into attacks. Just the way that hitboxes work, the less time you spend with the hitboxes interacting, it's the same for Monster Hunter and any other game. The less time you spend with the hitboxes interacting, the more chance you have of the timing being correct, of the iframes actually allowing the hitboxes to no longer be interacting. So dodging into attacks is more forgiving of fucking up timing than dodging away or with attacks.
Or with an attack,
which is the thing a lot of people who don't play these kinds of games don't know, but it's a core fundamental. But it's also scarier because you're rolling towards the person.
It's just like knife. I want to roll towards it. But
exactly. And like so like they add all these fun mechanics, and like I said, I have this weird ability to not really get tilted. The only times I kind of go, and like don't get me wrong, I'll get frustrated. I'll be like I'll like curse or something when I fuck something up. But then like after the moment of frustration happens, it's probably a neurodivergency trait because of my ADHD, but like my brain switches from like frustration mode to, okay, what did I fuck up there? How can I do this better mode? And like learning mode. So like,
I mean, yeah, but there's a good like learning lesson there too, though, because like I had to do that when I was trying to learn how to play Smash competitively,
right?
Because
exactly.
I was blaming the game. Yeah, I was just sitting there blaming the game, but it was me just not actually paying attention to my inputs. So one of the things that's always stuck with me since those days was my friend saying to me, was it the game or what did you press? And so now I'm very cognitive about what I press. So at least now when I blame the game, it actually means something, not just me going like, shitty game, too bad.
And like Docs, and like out of every Souls game, because of the crouch and jump mechanics, Elden Ring has the tightest hitboxes on enemies' attacks. The tightest. There are attacks that I can dodge with an attack that like kneels my character over, like hunches my character over because I swing so hard. I can dodge certain attacks because I'm ducking under them.
What the fuck?
Like they are so you can crouch those attacks if you really want to. I just don't. But like you can crouch those attacks too. Like the hitboxes are so tight. Like every Dark Souls game has had some issues with hitbox bullshit, but like the hitboxes in Elden Ring are so tight. And like I feel like when you can make that mindset switch of like this game is bullshit to I made a mistake, I can improve from this. That's when like Souls games click. When you accept that like the game isn't bullshitting you. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are bullshit moments. Like there are moments where you're just like, this is actually broken. Like something is actually broken. And sometimes you just have to be like when I was fighting the boss I was not supposed to be fighting at level 1. He has one attack that the hitbox gets really weird if any of his long body is touching a wall and changes his body angle slightly.
Yeah.
Where like I will be straight up out of the visual hitbox and still die. So I just realized, okay, anytime that happens, because there's some hitbox bullshit, I have to always move to this specific part of his body so there isn't hitbox bullshit. Yep. There's a little stuff like that, but generally speaking, like part of what's been so good about FromSoft design is that generally speaking, there isn't much of that bullshit. It's just like you have to learn you have to learn to fight, basically.
Oh, literally
you have to learn the area, and you have to get good. And like
basic premise of Elden Ring, get good.
Get good. But the thing is, Elden Ring gives you so many tools to get good with. You don't have to play. You don't have to be a monkey like me and play a TA.
Just go around, explore a little bit, grab some items, come back if you want to.
Like in previous games, you had to like, even if you like min max before you fought the first boss, you could at most get like maybe 2 more flasks and maybe an upgrade to your flask. So you still had to fight them with like 4 flasks and 4 healing items that barely heals you up. And sure, you could grind up levels, but there reaches a point where getting more health doesn't matter because you have enough healing.
Oh yeah.
And then but in Elden Ring, you can explore around there. I think Vadi Vidya already has a video out about how to have 10 flasks at like +5 with a +13 weapon, and also really good armor sets and really good gear at 2 hours into the game if you just know where to go on your horse. You can do shit like that in Elden Ring.
And without fighting any bosses or fighting any mobs, like it's literally just exploring,
run around and grab shit.
It's so good.
Like you can do that in Elden Ring. That's why I was saying, like, I think people focus too much on, come back when you're higher level. No, come back when you have better shit.
There it is.
The levels don't matter that much.
No.
Like for me, levels matter a lot because my build is expensive as fuck because I'm running 1 to 2 ultra great swords with magic. So like I need a lot of equip load, I need a lot of strength, I need at least some intelligence, and I still need a base amount of health and whatnot for like survivability. So like my build is expensive, but like if you're just a normal person using a fucking longsword or a katana or an axe or something, like when you have like 20 vitality, you're good for like the first good chunk of the game. Like you don't need that much health. And like the incremental getting like 5 more strength on a beast scaling strength weapon gets you like
nothing.
10 more damage per hit. Like who gives a fuck? Like it doesn't make that big a difference. So like what is important is, okay, you're struggling against these mainline bosses because they are designed to be very difficult. You're not supposed to kill the first one at level 17 while naked with 2 long swords like I did.
Really.
And it took me like I think it took me 35 deaths, which is pretty low honestly, but like You're not supposed to fight them like that.
No.
You're supposed to use summons and throw bombs at them and go explore and come back with better gear. Like, me coming back at level 30 wouldn't have made much of a difference. My damage would have gone up by like maybe 10-15%. I might have been able to hit like one more hit. But the fact that me coming back with like 5 extra healing flasks, all of which will full health heal me every time, me coming back with like the ability to throw 5, 6, 7 bombs at him at the beginning or the end of the fight, me having a better summon to use, me having like a more upgraded weapon so I actually have a statistically significant damage increase, that matters. Gearing up and finding more shit matters in Elden Ring. Levels, less so.
Oh, okay. Huh. Well,
yeah, go explore.
Oh, absolutely. I personally do need to get going because I need to do some stuff. But thank you.
He's doing a speedrun Rise.
Oh boy, Rise speedrun fun.
Yes, oh, it's gonna be fun. I'm doing a 2-player run with my girlfriend. It's absolutely amazing.
Nice.
Yes, but thank you, Jinx, so much for coming on. It was an absolute blast talking with you again.
It's been a lot of fun.
It was a pleasure.
Yes, and
I'm sorry that I feel like I probably took up like over half the talking time, but I tend to do that. ADHD. I like to info dump about things I'm interested in.
Oh, absolutely.
Literally what it's a podcast. It's what it's for.
Oh yeah. No, you're fine. Like whenever if you're interested in coming back on at some point in the future, what we usually do is like either reintroduce another guest as well, kind of have like two guests, or just have you back on again at some point.
Sure.
It'd be awesome. We'd love to talk with you more. And if there's anything that you would like to plug or really talk about, let us know. What you got going on?
Well, Tuner, who is much better at video games than me, is playing Elden Ring and suffering probably a lot less than me. Tuner has much better reaction time than me and is a more skilled mechanically player than I am. I just have a weirdly untiltable mind. I'm too monkey to get frustrated at game. I keep pounding at the wall until I find the weak spot and smash my head through it. But he streams over at twitch.tv/tuner most days of the week. Recently, he's been doing it like 10 to 4 Pacific time, I think, mostly. But he also plays sometimes after work as well. He's been playing a lot of Elden Ring lately, and I am also, if you go to our YouTube channel, JinJinx and Tuner, Mathalos mains, I'm sure there'll be a link in the description or whatever for this podcast.
We will put all that down there.
But if you head over there, if you want to check out any of our old Monster Hunter or Genshin content, it's still up there, obviously. And like we did a lot of meta stuff or stuff like that. And then also with Elden Ring, I mean, I've been like releasing some Let's Play stuff. It's been doing but like it's fun for me to do Let's Play stuff. But also if you even just want to see short videos, like I said, you can watch my I fast forward through a lot of it, but you can watch my 7-minute long fights against Secret Boss, who by the way is worth 15,000 ruins. Damn. That's more than the first Great Ruin boss is worth. That's how hard to fight this shit was. Oh, that motherfucker was. But if you want to watch that, if you want to watch me be bad gamer but be dedicated gamer, which is apparently the first thing I say in the clip. There's even a point during it where like I like panic. I'm like, no. It's like, no, don't lose your composure, Jinx. You're fine. Just focus. That's on the channel too. It's called I died 102 times at level 1 or something in Elden Ring. But yeah, we got stuff on YouTube. I may put out some more Elden Ring stuff. I don't want to commit to anything because like I would like to put out like a little Elden Ring beginner's tip guide. I would like to put out a guide talking about rolling and how to roll better and dodge better in these games, because a lot of people just don't have the like action RPG background to understand how hitboxes and iframes and rolling into attacks work and shit like that. But I don't want to commit to anything right now because I'm enjoying spending my time actually playing Elden Ring.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's stuff to plug, I guess.
Hell yeah. Definitely recommend checking them out. Thank you again so much for coming on. And we'll see you all in the next podcast. Y'all have a good one.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.